The last line of defense. The familiar hum of Helios 7's fusion reactor had always been a comfort to Chief Engineer Isabella Rodriguez. Today, that steady vibration carried a different meaning. It was the heartbeat of humanity's last stronghold in the Proxima Centauri system. She stood at the main engineering console, watching as red warning indicators bloomed across the station's diagnostic display like deadly flowers. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. "Multiple breaches detected in outer defense rings," the station's AI responded. "Unknown vessels approaching. Configuration matches no known human or allied designs." Isabella's fingers flew across the holographic interface, bringing up external camera feeds. What she saw made her blood run cold. Massive ships, their surfaces rippling with an organic metallic sheen, were surrounding the station. They moved with an unsettling grace, their hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Security Chief Harrison to all personnel," the station-wide comm system crackled. "This is not a drill. We are under attack by an unknown hostile force. All non-essential personnel proceed to evacuation points immediately." Isabella's mind raced through calculations and possibilities. Helios 7 wasn't just any space station, it was humanity's most advanced research facility, home to breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics and faster-than-light travel. More importantly, it housed the prototype of the Graham Drive, humanity's first true FTL engine. If these aliens got their hands on it. "Chief Rodriguez," Harrison's voice came through on a private channel. "You need to start emergency shutdown procedures and get to the evacuation pods." Isabella watched as the first alien ship latched onto the station's outer ring. "Negative, Chief. Someone needs to maintain core systems during evacuation. Besides, I've got a few tricks these visitors aren't expecting." The first explosion rocked the station before Harrison could argue. Isabella braced herself against the console, watching as the alien ships, the Kraxen, as they would later be known, began their systematic invasion. She pulled up the station's full schematics, her mind already formulating plans. 7 years as chief engineer had taught her every quirk, every bypass, and every potential weapon hidden in Helios 7 systems. The station wasn't just her workplace, it was an extension of herself. Isabella began implementing emergency protocols she'd designed but hoped never to use. She rerouted power from non-essential systems, strengthening shields around evacuation routes. Her fingers danced across the controls, setting up cascading system failures that would trap invaders in selected sections. The first group of Kraxen warriors breached the outer hull exactly where she'd predicted. The security feed showed them in terrible clarity, towering figures in crystalline armor, moving with precision that spoke of both technological advancement and military discipline. "Let's see how you handle this," Isabella muttered, activating her first trap. The section's atmospheric controls went into overdrive, creating a localized pressure differential that sent the invaders tumbling. Their formations broke, and human security forces seized the advantage. But it was only the beginning. More breach points appeared across the station's surface. Isabella coordinated with security teams, using her intimate knowledge of the station's systems to create choke points and kill zones. She transformed maintenance bots into mobile barriers, overrode safety protocols to turn corridor force fields into deadly weapons, and used the station's waste recycling system to flood entire sections with caustic but non-lethal chemicals. Hours passed in a blur of tactical decisions and emergency repairs. The evacuation proceeded in phases, with Isabella coordinating safe routes through the chaos. She watched the population numbers dropping on her display, 5,000. 3,000, 1,000 remaining. The Kraxen adapted to each of her tricks, but she stayed one step ahead, drawing on years of experience and a deep understanding of systems they couldn't hope to match. Every minute she bought was another shuttle of civilians reaching safety. A massive impact shook the station, and new alarms screamed for attention. The main reactor's containment field was fluctuating. If it failed, the resulting explosion would tear Helios 7 apart. Engineering to all remaining personnel, Isabella broadcast. Begin final evacuation. I repeat, begin final evacuation. Chief Rodriguez, Harrison's voice came through again, strained with exhaustion and worry. That includes you. We've got less than 50 people left on board. Isabella looked at her console, where a new simulation was running. A plan was forming, dangerous, probably suicide, but potentially the only way to save not just the station, but maybe humanity's future. Harrison, she said, her voice firm. Get everyone else out. I've got one more card to play. The reactor core pulsed with an eerie blue glow as Isabella raced through her calculations. The Kraxan forces had taken control of 3/4 of the station, but they hadn't reached the heart of Helios 7 yet, and she intended to keep it that way. Station status, she commanded, wiping sweat from her forehead. Structural integrity at 64%. Main power grid operating at 78% capacity. Hostile forces detected on levels 3 through 12, the AI responded. Warning, quantum lab containment protocols compromised. Isabella's heart skipped a beat. The quantum lab, where the Graham Drive prototype was housed. She pulled up the security feeds, watching as towering Kraxan warriors methodically cut through reinforced doors. Their crystalline armor seemed to pulse with internal energy, and their movements were unnaturally precise. Not today, she muttered, initiating a series of commands. The station's maintenance systems came alive under her control. Repair drones, normally used for external hull maintenance, swarmed through the ventilation systems. She'd reprogrammed them over the last few hours, turning the simple machines into mobile sabotage units. The first wave of drones emerged behind the Kraxan squad, their welding arms reconfigured to emit concentrated electromagnetic pulses. The aliens' armor flickered and sparked, their coordinated movements becoming jerky and erratic. Security footage showed several warriors collapsing, their high-tech equipment rendered useless. But Isabella knew better than to celebrate early. The Kraxan were learning, adapting. Each trick only worked once or twice before they developed countermeasures. She needed to think bigger. She accessed the station's deep maintenance protocols, bringing up systems that hadn't been touched since Helios 7's construction. The station's skeleton held secrets even its builders had forgotten, and Isabella had spent years studying every blueprint, every maintenance log, every engineering quirk. Start Emergency Protocol Omega, she commanded. Authorization Rodriguez 7 Delta 9. Warning lights flashed across her console. What she was attempting was dangerous, possibly suicidal. The station's artificial gravity grid wasn't meant to be manipulated this way, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Section by section, she began altering the gravitational fields. Corridors became death traps as gravity shifted unpredictably. Some areas experienced forces 5 times normal, while others became zero-G zones without warning. The Kraxan's precise movements became their weakness, they couldn't adapt fast enough to the changing conditions. Unknown energy signature detected in Section 47, the AI announced suddenly. Caution, quantum fluctuations increasing. Isabella's blood ran cold. Section 47, the Quantum Lab. The Kraxan weren't just trying to steal the Graham Drive, they were attempting to activate it. The fools had no idea what they were dealing with. She initiated emergency containment procedures, but the aliens had already bypassed too many safety systems. The quantum readings were off the scale, threatening to tear a hole in spacetime itself. Isabella made a decision. She grabbed her modified toolkit and headed for the maintenance tunnels. If she couldn't stop them from the control room, she'd have to do it in person. The maintenance passages were her domain, a maze of narrow corridors and access tubes that ran through Helios 7's superstructure. She moved quickly, using her intimate knowledge of the station's layout to avoid Kraxan patrols. As she crawled through a particularly tight section, her comm unit crackled to life. Rodriguez? Harrison here. We've got the last civilian shuttle away, but we're picking up some crazy readings from the station. What the hell is going on in there? The Kraxen are trying to activate the Graham drive, she replied, her voice tight. They don't understand the containment protocols. If they succeed, they'll create a quantum cascade that could rip apart half the system. Get out of there, Harrison urged. We can't lose you too. Isabella emerged from the maintenance shaft near the quantum lab, her modified toolkit ready. Someone has to stop them, Harrison. And I'm the only one who knows how. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the Kraxen warriors gathered around the Graham drive prototype. Their armor glowed with an intense light, seeming to react to the quantum energies building in the chamber. Their leader, distinguished by elaborate markings on its crystalline shell, was interfacing directly with the drive's control systems. Isabella pulled out her tablet, connecting to the lab's local network. The Kraxen had bypassed most of the safety protocols, but they'd missed one, the emergency plasma venting system she'd installed after the last containment breach. Her fingers flew across the screen, initiating a complex sequence of commands. The quantum readings were reaching critical levels. If she timed this wrong, the entire station would be destroyed. Come on, she whispered, watching the energy levels climb. Just a little closer. The Kraxen leader raised its arms in what looked like triumph as the Graham drive began to pulse with brilliant light. That's when Isabella hit the final command. Plasma vents opened in the ceiling, flooding the lab with superheated gas. The Kraxen's armor, already stressed by the quantum energies, began to crack. Their coordinated movements turned to chaos as they tried to escape the deadly storm. But Isabella wasn't done. She'd learned something about their crystalline armor, it was vulnerable to rapid temperature changes. As the plasma cleared, she triggered the emergency cooling systems. The thermal shock was too much. The alien armor shattered, leaving them vulnerable and disoriented. Security drones she'd reprogrammed swept in, targeting the exposed Kraxen with precision stun blasts. One by one, the alien warriors fell. Isabella allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before reality crashed back in. She'd won this battle, but the station's systems were showing dozens more Kraxen squads converging on her position. And now they knew exactly where she was. Harrison, she transmitted, already moving back toward the maintenance shaft. I've secured the Graham drive, but things are about to get very interesting. Stand by for something spectacular. She had one more plan, her riskiest yet. But first, she needed to reach the station's core before the Kraxen recovered from this setback. The real battle for Helios 7 was just beginning. The quantum lab was secure, but Isabella's victory had come at a cost. Her wrist computer showed critical failures cascading through Helios 7 systems. The Kraxen's relentless assault had taken its toll, and now the station was beginning to crack under the pressure. Warning, primary life support failing on levels 5 through 8, the AI announced. Structural integrity compromised in sectors 12, 14, and 17. Isabella crawled through a maintenance shaft, her modified toolkit bouncing against her back. The station's internal sensors showed Kraxen forces regrouping, changing their tactics. They were learning, adapting to her defensive measures. Show me their movement patterns, she commanded, pulling up a holographic display from her wrist computer. The 3D map of Helios 7 lit up with red dots representing Kraxen warriors. Their new formation was different, more fluid, less predictable. As she watched, a realization struck her. The Kraxen weren't just trying to take the station anymore. Their attack patterns were focused on specific systems, specific junctions. They were trying to force a complete shutdown. They're not here to capture the Graham drive, she muttered. They want to erase it, and all our research with it. A massive explosion rocked the station, nearly dislodging her from the maintenance shaft. Emergency klaxons blared as new warnings flooded her display. The Kraxen had breached the main power distribution hub. Isabella emerged from the shaft into a nightmare. The corridor ahead was filled with twisted metal and sparking cables. Through the chaos, she could hear the distinctive sound of cracks in weapons fire getting closer. She reached for her tablet, accessing the station's deep diagnostics. The power grid was failing, but she had anticipated this. Over the years, she had installed backup systems within backup systems, creating redundancies that even the station's builders didn't know about. "Initiate Protocol Lazarus," she commanded. Hidden power cells throughout the station activated, bringing critical systems back online through pathways the Kraxen couldn't detect. But her adversaries had another surprise waiting. The station's sensors detected a new energy signature, something massive powering up within the Kraxen fleet. Their ships were positioning themselves in a precise geometric pattern around Helios 7. "Energy analysis complete," the AI reported. "Warning, pattern matches theoretical quantum destabilization array." Isabella's blood ran cold. The Kraxen weren't just trying to destroy the station, they were attempting to create a quantum singularity that would erase all trace of human advancement in this sector. She ran complex calculations in her head as she moved through the station's arteries. The quantum destabilization would tear Helios 7 apart at the subatomic level, but it would also interact with the Graham drive in unpredictable ways. The resulting reaction could potentially destroy everything within half a light year. "Harrison," she transmitted, her voice tight with urgency. "If you're still monitoring, get those evacuation ships as far away as possible. The Kraxen are about to do something incredibly stupid." She reached a junction point where several main power conduits intersected. This was where she'd make her stand. Her fingers flew across her tablet, initiating emergency protocols she'd designed for scenarios she'd hoped would never happen. The station's remaining power was rerouted through experimental circuits, creating a quantum feedback loop. If she couldn't prevent the Kraxen's attack, she could at least try to contain its effects. The first wave of Kraxen warriors found her there, their crystalline armor glowing with an inner light that seemed to bend reality around them. Their weapons powered up with an ominous hum. "Your resistance is illogical," their leader communicated through some form of synthetic speech. "The humans' quantum experiments threaten the stability of this sector. We must eliminate this contamination." Isabella didn't bother responding. Instead, she triggered her latest modification to the station's systems. The quantum feedback loop she'd created surged through the power conduits, creating localized distortions in spacetime. The Kraxen's weapons fired, but their energy beams twisted and curved in impossible ways, missing their targets. Their precise movements became erratic as local gravity fluctuated wildly. But Isabella knew she was only buying time. The quantum destabilization array was nearly charged, and her improvised defenses wouldn't hold forever. She needed a game-changing solution, and she needed it fast. That's when she noticed something in the sensor readings, a peculiar interaction between the quantum feedback loop and the Kraxen's crystalline armor. Their supposedly impervious technology had a weakness, one that could potentially turn their own weapon against them. As the station shuddered around her and systems failed one by one, Isabella Rodriguez began formulating her most daring plan yet. It would either save Helios 7 or ensure its complete destruction, but either way, she would show the Kraxen why underestimating human ingenuity was their greatest mistake. Isabella entered the heart of Helios 7, where the station's massive fusion core pulsed with barely contained power. The chamber was bathed in an ethereal blue glow, making the scattered tools and discarded maintenance equipment cast long shadows across the deck. Her plan was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. The station's AI chimed in urgently. Multiple hull breaches detected. Kraxen forces converging on central core. Estimated time to breach, 6 minutes. She worked feverishly at the main engineering console, rerouting power systems and overriding safety protocols. The Graham drive's quantum signature was still detectable, its unstable energies creating ripples in the local spacetime fabric. But instead of fighting it, Isabella planned to use it. Begin core recalibration sequence, she commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Redirect quantum feedback loop through main reactor shielding. Warning indicators flashed across her screens. What she was attempting had never been done before, using the station's fusion reactor as a quantum amplifier. The Kraxen's own attempts to activate the Graham drive had created a unique opportunity, one that could either save the station or tear it apart. The first explosions rocked the outer doors of the core chamber. The Kraxen were getting closer, their plasma weapons carving through reinforced bulkheads like paper. Isabella glanced at her modified tablet, watching as the quantum readings climbed higher. Core containment at 157% of recommended levels, the AI warned. Quantum cascade imminent. That's what I'm counting on, Isabella muttered, initiating the final sequence. She'd spent years studying the theoretical physics behind the Graham drive. Its principles of quantum manipulation could be applied to more than just FTL travel, if you were either brilliant or desperate enough to try. The chamber doors burst inward in a shower of molten metal. Kraxen warriors poured through the breach, their crystalline armor glowing with an intense inner light. Their leader, massive even by their standards, stepped forward. To Isabella's surprise, it spoke, its voice a harsh electronic approximation of human speech. Your resistance ends here, human. Submit, and you may yet survive to serve the Kraxen Empire. Isabella smiled grimly, her hand hovering over the final command sequence. You know what your biggest mistake was? Assuming this station was just another target. Helios 7 isn't just a research facility, it's humanity's greatest achievement. And I'm not just its engineer, I'm its guardian. She slammed her hand down on the console, initiating her masterpiece of improvised engineering. The fusion core flared blindingly bright as it connected with the quantum field generated by the Graham drive. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist around them. The Kraxen warriors staggered, their crystalline armor resonating with the quantum frequencies flooding the chamber. Isabella had discovered their weakness during their earlier attempt to activate the drive, their biomechanical armor was sensitive to quantum fluctuations. What are you doing? The Kraxen leader demanded, its confident tone replaced by uncertainty. Teaching you why humans are dangerous, Isabella replied, pushing the reactor to its limits. We don't just use technology, we understand it. We adapt it. We make it do things its creators never imagined possible. The quantum cascade reached critical levels. But instead of destroying the station, the energy was being channeled, focused through the carefully calibrated reactor systems. The Kraxen's armor began to crack, their supposedly invincible technology unable to withstand the quantum storm Isabella had engineered. She watched through the security feeds as the effect spread throughout the station. Everywhere, Kraxen warriors were falling, their armor failing under the sustained quantum assault. Their ships, still attached to the station's hull, began to drift away, their crews incapacitated. But victory came at a cost. The reactor was overloading, its containment systems pushed far beyond their design limits. Emergency klaxons blared throughout the station. Core breach imminent, the AI announced. Recommend immediate evacuation. Isabella's hands flew across the console, trying to stabilize the reactor. She'd known this was a possibility, the price of saving the station might be its destruction. But she had one last card to play, one final piece of engineering brilliance. As alarms screamed and systems failed around her, Isabella Rodriguez prepared for her riskiest gambit yet. The fate of Helios 7, and perhaps humanity's future in space, hung in the balance. Humanity's stand. The fusion core chamber had become a maelstrom of energy and chaos. Emergency lights strobed through clouds of vented plasma as Isabella fought to prevent total system collapse. Around her lay the fallen forms of Kraxen warriors, their once magnificent crystalline armor now reduced to fractured shells. Core temperature exceeding critical threshold, the AI warned. Containment failure in 3 minutes. Isabella's mind raced through possibilities, each calculation more desperate than the last. The quantum cascade she triggered had worked, perhaps too well. The Kraxen were defeated, but Helios 7 was tearing itself apart. "Harrison, if you're still monitoring," she transmitted, "get those evacuation ships clear. Minimum safe distance." "Rodriguez, what the hell are you planning?" Harrison's voice crackled through static. She managed a grim smile as she initiated her final sequence. "Something absolutely insane. But then, that's what humans do best, isn't it?" Isabella had spent years studying the theoretical physics behind the Graham drive. Its principles of quantum manipulation weren't just about faster-than-light travel, they were about bending reality itself. And right now, reality in Helios 7 was becoming dangerously unstable. Rather than fight the quantum cascade, she began tuning it. The station's reactor became a focal point, channeling the chaotic energies through carefully calculated pathways. Every system, every power conduit, every piece of technology she'd ever modified came into play. 2 minutes to containment failure, the AI announced. The few surviving Kraxen warriors were retreating, their proud military discipline shattered by technology they couldn't comprehend. Their ships were disconnecting from the station's hull, pulling back into space. Isabella's fingers danced across multiple interfaces, orchestrating a symphony of engineering improvisation. The Graham drive's quantum field began to synchronize with the reactor's output, creating something entirely new, a controlled quantum bubble encompassing the entire station. 1 minute to containment failure. "Harrison," Isabella transmitted, her voice steady despite the chaos. "What you're about to see, make sure humanity remembers it. This is what we can achieve when we're pushed to our limits." The quantum bubble stabilized, microseconds before the reactor would have breached. Inside it, the laws of physics bent to Isabella's will. The devastating energies that should have torn the station apart were instead channeled, contained, and ultimately transformed. Helios 7 shimmered like a mirage in space, its structure seeming to exist in multiple realities at once. Then, with a flash that briefly outshone the nearby star, the quantum bubble collapsed inward. The station's mass and energy redistributed themselves according to Isabella's calculations, guided by her deep understanding of both the Graham drive and the station's systems. When the light faded, Helios 7 remained. Not only intact but transformed. The quantum energies had been absorbed and integrated into its very structure, creating something unprecedented, a station that was partially quantum-phased, more resilient than its builders had ever imagined possible. In the core chamber, Isabella finally allowed herself to breathe. Monitors showed the Kraxen fleet in full retreat, their mighty warships fleeing from what they didn't understand. She had turned their own attack into humanity's greatest defensive advancement. "Station status," she asked, barely recognizing her own voice through the exhaustion. "All systems stabilizing," the AI reported. "Quantum integration at 89% and holding. Hull integrity restored. New capabilities detected, analyzing." Harrison's voice broke through the comm system, filled with disbelief. "Rodriguez, what did you just do?" She looked around the chamber, at the fallen Kraxen warriors and the softly humming reactor core. "I showed them why you should never underestimate human ingenuity. We don't just survive, Harrison. We adapt. We improve. We take what tries to destroy us and turn it into something new." The story of Helios 7 would be told throughout human space for generations. Not just as a tale of resistance against overwhelming odds, but as a testament to human creativity and determination. One engineer, armed with knowledge, courage, and the ability to think beyond the possible, had not only saved the station but advanced human technology by decades. Isabella Rodriguez remained at her post, already beginning the process of understanding what Helios 7 had become. The Kraxen had meant to destroy humanity's foothold in space. Instead, they had helped create something unprecedented, a symbol of humanity's resilience and ingenuity that would stand as a beacon of hope among the stars.